Whenever you're given the graph to begin with, and they tell you it, they'll always give you function notation as far as telling you what kind of transformations. Here, our original graph is g of x. We want to sketch the graph of y equals g of 0.5x. This 0.5 is inside the function. It's going to affect our x values, and we're going to multiply our x by 2. So if we label all of our original points, negative 3, comma 2, 1, comma, negative 1, comma 5, 3, comma 3, and 4, comma negative 2, the transformation is that your x value would have to get multiplied by 2. What's going to happen to each of those points? The x value is going to change. Your y coordinate is going to stay the same. And this would be one that I would say if you're just doing x by 2, I wrote the points out, but if you didn't show those points and you just went directly to the graph and took your y values and multiplied them by 2, and then connected the dots, that would be fine. You wouldn't have to show each of those points because it is rather straightforward to see that you're just multiplying your x coordinates by 2. You might notice that the y-intercept is the one point that stays the same, even though we didn't label that point. If you had an x coordinate of 0, when you multiply it by 2, it'll still be 0. So that point wouldn't change. Again, the question asked us for the domain and range. Does the red graph have a smallest value? Yes, it does at negative 3, less than or equal to x, a largest value at 4. Interval notation, you'd write that as negative 3 to 4. And on our green graph, well, we're multiplying our x values by 2. You see that in the domain as well, that your domain just the x values all get multiplied by 2. So if you had everything between negative 3 and 4, you now have everything between negative 6 and 8. And sometimes on the final exam, that's what they're going to do. They're just going to take a piece of the information. All of this other stuff helps us answer that. But if I took the graph away, and I just told you my original domain was negative 3 to 4, and it's been stretched horizontally by a factor of 2. Could you come up with the new domain of the new image from 6 to 8? Same thing with the range. Our original range, smallest y value is negative 2. Our largest y value goes up to 5. Interval notation would be 2 to 5. Does anything change in our range? No. What are we doing? We're multiplying our x values by 2. And this seems to be, I've seen this quite a few times on a final exam. That they choose something that doesn't change, because that kind of makes you feel a little like nervous that my answer was the same as what the question was, so did I do something wrong? And they're really checking if you understand and are confident with keeping it the same. Because in this case, your x values are changing, your y values aren't. So your range is going to be exactly the same for both graphs. Questions you can do are 4 and 8.